Peace, 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 family. Sister Victoria X here from, hold on one second. So, peace, 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 family. We are tapping in for another read along today. Today, we are actually going to be reading um, chapter 7, which is a continuation from yesterday. We read chapter 6, which was roots of domestic violence. And hey, peace, Kim. And if you have not had the chance to listen to that, it's on my page. But chapters 1 through 6 are also on my YouTube. So if you want to read, listen to those being read as well as the commentary for those other chapters. Some of the chapters are what it means to be a helpmeet, the basis of communication. I believe that's the title. What a woman needs from a man. Also, marriage, the real power base of the black man. So, if those are some titles that interest you, I have put them. Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Um, let me see. So all of those are on my YouTube. Click the link in my bio, scroll all the way down and click on the YouTube icon, and then you can read the rest of you can listen to the rest of those. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. And the way that I do it is I like to read through it first because some of the people that listen to this on the replay just like to hear the text and don't really care for my commentary. So my commentary will be at the end. So walaikum salam, ma'am. So if I will get to your comments once I'm finished reading. So today we are on chapter 7 of Real Love by Ava Muhammad. And chapter 7 is the resolution of conflict. A married couple that never argues is not really married. If you are in love, you will encounter conflict. In fact, conflict is one of the building blocks of intimacy. Ooh, okay. The question is not if you will disagree. The question is how you will disagree. Marriage experts give signs that you are in trouble if certain attitudes are present in your disagreements. The primary one is contempt. You are going to level criticisms at one another. But when sarcasm, profanity, and name calling enter the dispute, you are moving towards contempt. The argument is not just explosive, allowing you to vent, it is now destructive. Contempt involves degrading and putting each other down, bringing up every mistake or error your spouse ever made and beating them over the head with it. This creates a barrier that remains after the anger has subsided. The next time there is a disagreement, you already have a wedge between you. You grow further and further apart until you terminate the marriage altogether. The way to avoid contempt is to dig deep in to deep your mind focused on the issue. Oh, keep, okay. Sorry about that. There was a little typo. The way to avoid contempt is to keep your mind focused on the issue. Don't assassinate your partner's character because they're on the other side of the question. You can be as forceful as you want on the issue. Go ahead and fight with words, but don't attack the person, attack the position. Personally, I hate myself when I argue with my husband. Why did I raise my voice? Why didn't I just keep my mouth shut? Why do I react that way? The list goes on. The thing about my marriage I am grateful for is that once we have it out, it is over. We have a vibrant, warm-blooded relationship. We do not go for days or even too many hours not speaking, being cold and distant. We miss each other too much, and we know life is too short to lose that kind of time. Anger is defined as a psychological response to a real or imagined threat. Its symptoms are a bounding hurt, dry throat, tight body poised to fight. Anger is a powerful emotion that can shock you the way it just bursts onto the scene, whether it emerges from you or your spouse. We all have our own way of expressing it and dealing with it. Some people deny it. I'm not angry, I'm just tired. Some suppress it entirely and damage their own health with a phony display of calm. Others try to elevate their anger to righteous indignation or refuse to work on it. This is just the way I am. The way you express anger is hereditary. It is acquired behavior, and that means it can be changed. Anger itself is an involuntary response, but the way it is handled can be controlled. We cannot avoid feeling it, but we have to do our best to keep it under control. The Holy Quran encourages the use of preventative measures in life. It also reads, only he accepts who listens. One of the most effective ways to diffuse potential conflict is by listening. Listening is a rare and valuable skill that would solve a lot of problems if more people had it. Listening helps us tap into the feelings that are under the words being spoken. There we go. When a couple can do this for one another, it really strengthens the relationship. Scientists say the majority of people speak at a rate of 120 words a minute, but can listen and comprehend 250 words a minute. Okay, science. This means there is time for mental activity to go on while the other person is talking. Most of us use that time to think of what we are going to say when they finish. It would be better to use the time understanding how they feel. That is real love. Okay, so that is the conclusion of chapter 7. It was pretty short and sweet. It was really packed with a lot of information and a lot of knowledge. And one of the things that I truly like to do when I'm reading, and most of the time when I'm studying, is parse each word, which basically means look up words that I do not understand and gain a better understanding of them so that I can understand what is being said better. So here, the first thing that where's my dictionary? First of all, so the first thing that caught me was the very first paragraph when it was talking about how married couples that never argue are not really married, right? And that caught me because a lot of people will say that a lot of people have this misconceived notion that if you don't argue, you ain't in love. Or if you don't argue, you don't want to be with a person. But this is saying right here and clear that, first of all, we have to recognize that we have a negative connotation when we think about the word argue. Automatically, when we think about argue, we think about yelling, we think about cussing, we think about going in on each other, we think about putting each other down. And those are the negative things that we think about when we think about argue, right? And so it's natural for us to believe that if we don't love a person, we wouldn't argue. I mean, if we loved a person, we wouldn't argue, because who seriously thinks about imparting that kind of damage on themselves and their partner? But the truth of the matter is, arguing correctly is an indication that two people love each other, because when you're arguing in the best of spirits and in the best of manners, you're both self-checking and you're leaving room to be checked, right? And the very next thing says, in fact, conflict is one of the building blocks of intimacy. Now that threw me off, right? That threw me off because I'm definitely the person that avoids conflict. I'm low key like passive aggressive as well. So not only will I avoid the conflict, you gonna know I have a problem, but I just might not say it until you try to address it with me. That's just how I am with my husband, and I'm trying to get better with that. But I never even thought of the concept that conflict, it builds intimacy, right? Because when you think about it, conflict actually opens your understanding and view of your spouse. Because oftentimes when you're in conflict with someone, or you're discussing a conflict that you have, it actually opens up a view to how you think and how you are. And so now that makes sense that it would build intimacy, because now you have a different and more advanced understanding of your partner. But I never thought of it like that. Like I be trying to figure out ways to figure out more about the way that my husband thinks or the way that he talks. And sometimes I'll just watch him and how he interacts with people so I can learn more about him. But I didn't realize that the very act of me avoiding certain conversations and not engaging in certain conversations is impeding on the very intimacy that I desire to have. So I thought that was very interesting. And then it goes back into the point where we were talking about we just have to learn how to disagree in the best of manners. So arguing isn't the problem. It's the way that we choose to argue a lot of the times. So we have to build up those skills, which she basically spells out in this chapter, to learn how to argue in the best of manners so that we are arguing in love and not in anger. So the very next thing that she says is you are going to level criticisms. Now I'm gonna get my dictionary because I want to read the different, because I know what a level is, but I'm sure that's not what this is talking about. You know what I mean? Like you go to first level, second level, third level, but I'm sure that that is not what they're talking about. And so I typically get out my dictionary and I will read a couple lines, a couple of the definitions until I see that there is a definition that fits where we are. So level, Level. Um, a step or stage in height, position, or rank. A device used to find a horizontal line. Then they have another one, to make or become horizontal, flat, or even. Of the same height, steady and cool. Ooh, steady and cool in judgment. That's the definition I was looking for. So that's the definition that fits for this particular sentence. You are going to, oh no, I think that's the wrong definition. You are going to level criticisms at one another. That sounds like throw. That is going to, okay, no, that was the right definition. Steady and cool in judgment. Because then she goes behind that and she says, but when sarcasm. So you are going to level criticisms at one another, which means that you are going to almost like exchange. It's almost like an even exchange across a line, right? But then when you start being sarcastic, when you start using profanity, when you start name calling, that's when the conversation is no longer an argument. It's no longer a productive means of communication. It is now contempt. And so I had already underlined contempt, and I'm like, okay, what does that word mean? Because I know contempt in court means that you speaking out of turn and now you gotta be shackled up, right, by the judge. So then she explains what contempt is. She says contempt involves degrading and putting each other down. Now you know us as I don't want to say us as women, because a lot of the times we will safeguard talking down on our spouse because we don't want to hurt their ego. So I don't want to say us as women, but it says contempt involves degrading and putting each other down, bringing up every mistake or error your spouse ever made and beating them over the head with it. Now that is something we as women will do. We sure will pull up that time when we first met 20 years ago, when you was looking at the other girl before us, and then you made us our second thought in an argument that has nothing to do about that, right? And sometimes we will do that when our spouses, and this is on both sides, our spouses step out of the relationship, and then we as the person decide to forgive them, and then we never let them forget it. So once we start getting into that area of contempt, when we're, putting each other down or bringing up old past mistakes and making it seem like we're better than them, based on their past mistakes, now we've exited, walaikum salam, we've exited constructive communication, and now walaikum salam, and now we've entered into contempt. And contempt creates a barrier that remains after the anger has subsided, right? Because there's no way that you can be in a constructive argument and then you tell somebody, oh, well, you ain't all that. You used to X, Y, and Z. And then after the argument, they just forget that you just you just dished all the information. Even if it's just between you two. You cannot in an argument say, well, You a B because of boot, 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 right? And then after the argument, I'm not going to sit on that like, oh, wow, is that really what they think about me? Is that really what he thinks? Just because the argument is over, it's not going to change the fact that you said what you said. Just because the argument is over, it's not going to change the fact that you belittled them in a way that now makes them question their own self. And so that's why we have to be very careful and very mindful in arguments about the things that we say and how we say them. Because when we start bringing up things that are in the past, things that have happened in the past, right? One, we're not giving that person the justice of acknowledging that they can no longer be the person that made that mistake, right? And sometimes when we are growing and we feel the growth and when we're experiencing the pain of growth, when someone brings up something that we did in the past, it hurts. It hurts in a way that it causes them to sometimes shell up, and it also causes them to reconsider the change they made. So it's like, you know what I mean? If you're going to treat me like the person I used to be, then I might as well be that person so I can deserve the treatment. And so we want to be very, very mindful of the way that we handle each other, and be mindful of the level of communication that we have, because it's okay to argue, right? As long as it's in the best of manners. And then once we start the sarcasm, profanity, and name calling, it's no longer an argument. So, and then the first tool that she gives is the way to avoid contempt is to keep your mind focused on the issue. What is the issue? And I'm telling you, I'll speak for myself because I want to cast on this on all the women. But that's the first thing, one of the things I do. It ain't about the issue no more. It's about you and what you did in the past. But the fact of the matter is, if I stepped out of line, the way I stepped out of line is not the issue. I'm not necessarily the issue, right? Or he's not necessarily the issue for calling me out. But if we focus on the issue, then no one, in my opinion, can be personally offended. But a lot of times we like to add that you on the end. You ba da 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 da. Instead of just addressing what it is. There was a fail in communication. Boom. That's the issue. So when we start talking about, well, you said XYZ and that made me XYZ, then now we placing blame. So, but if we focus on the issue, then that eliminates anyone feeling like they were personally attacked. The next thing she said is don't assassinate your partner's character, because they are on the other side of the question. One thing that my husband is really big on is his character. Like, and there were times where we would argue, and I didn't get it before, that we would argue and I would say that you always doing XYZ or you always doing that, right? And some of the things that I would say was an assassination on his character, but I couldn't see it, but he could. And so he addressed it. Okay, well then give me an example. If I'm that kind of person that you say I always am, give me an example. Right? And so we have to be very careful not to put labels on each other. Oh, well, you a liar. Oh, well, you're ignorant. So we got to focus on the issue and don't attack each other's character. The next thing that she said, oh, this was the big one that she said right here. She said, you can be as forceful as you want on the issue. Go ahead and fight with your words. But don't attack the person, attack the position. Okay. And then this is the other key that she said. She said, the thing about my marriage, I am grateful for that I am grateful for the fact that once we have it out, like once we argue, once we get our position out, once we talk about it, it's over. Right? We like to linger it on. It got to be done. If we spend all this time, and sometimes it be taking hours, if we spend all this time having this conversation, once we done found a solution, ain't nobody need to be walking away mad. Ain't nobody ever need to bring up that conversation before. I mean, No one never, I heavily agree with that. I can't take some I can't take someone attacking my character. I need to work on that, right? But the other side of that, and I'll add this, this is not what she said in the book too, right? Because we'll have it out and it's over. That is over. That's past, right? And we shouldn't be bringing up things that happened in the past, but we also have to hold ourselves accountable. If we having a disagreement and we talked it out and we came up with a solution, then don't be surprised if it come back in if you don't hold up your end. Don't be surprised if it comes back up if you didn't hold up your end. Because that's what made the conversation over. Because you agreed on something, I agreed on something, and so we can move forward. But if one of us or both of us don't meet our end of the bargain, then that conversation is going to come up again. But that was so important to me because a lot of times we'll have these disagreements or we have these talks with our spouses, and then once the conversation is over, we still mad. She said, "Yes, ma'am, I bring it up for you." We still mad. And a lot of the times, the reason why we're still mad is because we're not arguing in the best of manners and we're doing exactly what she said not to do before. We're being sarcastic. We're cussing each other out. We're calling each other names. We're attacking each other's characters. And so know that if we strive to argue in the best of manners, when it's over, it will be over. And if it's not over when it's over, somebody stepped outside of the bounds of arguing in the best of manners. And then she said, anger is defined as a physiological response to a real or imagined threat. Sometimes we be mad about stuff that ain't even real, right? And that's why she goes into later where she's talking about the importance of listening. That's why it is so important to listen to what they said, not to what we perceived. Because somebody will say something that'll trick, and I'm guilty, y'all, and I'm working on it. But sometimes something can be said, and before they even finish it, I allow myself to be triggered, and now I'm thinking about all the stuff that those three words really meant. Like somebody will say to me, well, you didn't send the email correctly. And in my head, I'd be like, oh, they think I'm incompetent. They think I don't know how to send no email. They think I don't know how to spell whoop de whoop whoop. And all they said was the email was incorrect. This one email was incorrect when you sent it at this one time. How did that equate to you being illiterate and not knowing how to send emails and not knowing how to send stuff to the right person? It don't add up. But that's why we have to learn to listen to what they are saying and not listen to what we perceive them to have said. Okay, so the symptoms of anger are a pounding heart, dry throat, tight body poised to fight. And that's me all the way. Right? When I'm upset, I feel it in my chest. I feel it in my head. And anger is very detrimental to your health. It is very detrimental to your health. And she even goes into it when she's talking about we cannot avoid feeling it. Then she says we all have our own way of expressing it and dealing with it. Some people deny it, but listen here, this is where we mostly be at. Some suppress it entirely and damage their own health with a phony display of calm. That's where we are. Peace, Coach Jason in the building. Peace, Justin. And that's where most of us are, especially as women. We have allowed ourselves in our mind to be silent so much that instead of expressing what we're feeling, we will hold it in. And I'll say we allow ourselves to be silenced because it's not real. It's an imaginary lip guard. We have gone so long without feeling like we're heard. We've gone so long without feeling like our feelings are validated. We've gone so long with feeling like we've been ignored that when we get the opportunity to express ourselves in the right arena, we'll still silence ourselves by not speaking. And part of that is because we genuinely do not know how to speak in a way that will not be destructive for the outcome we're hoping to receive. Because we are sarcastic. we will hold you to your past, right? And so it's gotten to the point where we, instead of outbursting, instead of being angry, instead of saying those things that we know how to say to cut you real deep when we in our feelings, we just will suppress it and feel it all on the inside burning up just to externally feel like we calm. And we end up hurting ourselves physically. That pain in your chest is real, but it's a phantom pain that's a cause of you holding in all those words. But phantom pains can cause real pain. Okay? And then this is the real thing that she said. She said the way we express anger is not hereditary. It is acquired behavior, and that means it can be changed. Okay, let's sit right there because I'm going to reverse and go back to where she says others try to elevate their anger to righteous indignation or refuse to work on it. This is just the way I am. Oh, this is why I can't accept when people be of a certain age and everybody give them an excuse to be in their ways. Everything that we've experienced and everything about the way that we are is learned behavior. So if you can learn it, you can unlearn it and change it. I cannot give people an excuse, just like I hope people wouldn't give me an excuse to just be the way that they are because they're a certain age. Because it's learned behavior, and the only way to unlearn it is if somebody checks you, and not like, hey, homie, not like that kind of check, but if someone brings it to your attention by not accepting that behavior from you. And let me read this. She said, just stop through to say grand rising before I go to bed. I posted a video about this today on Facebook. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for stopping stopping through. We lie to ourselves about ourselves, and that reprograms us. Yes, ma'am. Because words are affirmations, right? Words affirm things, right? So if we say that's just how I am, then your body and your mind will never move into a position of change because you're settled with being just who you are. So don't affirm that that's just who you are. Affirm that you're changing. Affirm that you're working on it. Affirm that you've acknowledged it and you're looking for a way to change it. But don't just affirm and sit in this is just the way that I am. So the next thing she goes into is talking about listening, and we went over that. But this is what she said. She broke down the science. Okay, she said scientists say the majority of people speak at a rate of 120 words a minute, but can listen and comprehend 250 words a minute. Now, that's the science of it, right? And so when I read that, I see, right? In 1 minute, I can learn more by listening. I can learn over 2 times more information by listening than I can from speaking. That's what that says to me. Scientists say the majority of people speak at a rate of 120 words a minute. Hey, Covered MGT, thank you for tuning in. Scientists say the majority of people speak at a rate of 120 words a minute, but can listen and comprehend 250 words a minute. So that says to me, if I keep my mouth closed for 1 minute, I can learn over 2 times as much information as if I keep my mouth open. So this means there is time for mental activity to go on while the other person is talking. So yes, that's the science of it. It was like all of that came from two pages and a half of information, but she broke that down and she gave us some tools that we can use. And I'm glad that she ended it on listening, because we all have a very hard time with listening. Instead of listening to listen to what the person is saying, we are listening to respond. And in the act of trying to configure our response, we are not able to hear what they are saying because our mind is occupied with what we are thinking. We have to start being in present moment and stop allowing our minds to take us off on journeys that don't exist. If someone says something about you in this moment, it has nothing to do with anything else. Sometimes it does, but we have to perceive it as it has nothing to do with anything else. It is not an attack on my whole life's character. It's not an attack on my whole life's work. It is something that they are bringing to my attention in this moment that I need to work on. So all this other stuff that we conjure up that don't be real, that we be thinking people be saying behind our back, that we really be saying about ourselves, but we want to put it off on somebody else because we are more ready to hold someone else accountable than we are to hold ourselves accountable. So we'll cast it off on them when they never even thought it's all us. It's just like when I used to so I went to college. It's no secret. I went to college. I got a bachelor's of science in business management. But the only reason why I went to college was to get away from my house. I only went to college to get away from home. Like, I wasn't the person that really loved school. Like, I really literally got by just on natural knowledge or natural ability. Wrestling, I was the only girl on the wrestling team. I won the very first the very first match I ever had. There's some boys that probably had their wrestling career ended because some things happened on the mat, extended shoulder or whatever the heck happened. But this is all off natural. There's never been a time in my life where I overexerted or maximized my ability. So even in school, I graduated with I don't even know, I think it's like a 3.3 GPA in high school. Basic, didn't do any studying, all off of memory. College, I did the same thing. 4 years I went through school. It was never a point in time. Basketball, track, these were never points in times where I fully lived to my capability, right? And so when we talk about that, dang, I forgot my point. See, that's why I need to just get to the point because I forgot. We talk about not being able to do this. What was I saying, y'all? We will hold somebody accountable for things that don't even really exist. Oh, yeah. Do y'all know where I was trying to go? I don't know where I was trying to go. We were talking about listening, and then we started talking about holding ourselves accountable. I don't even know where I was going with that. But I know that there's never been a point in time where I had to fully exert myself to do anything. You started talking about going to school for your parents. Oh, I went to school for my parents to get away. Okay, so that's where I was going with that. So I went to school just to get away from my parents, right? And everything, and I feel like Allah's punished. I don't want to say punish me, but He getting me back now because I'm actually having to work a little bit more to do the things that I do. But I've gotten this far really by just doing, not really exerting myself. And so when I went back to college, mind you, I only went to get away from home, right? So when I came back from college on the little breaks that we typically have on whatever holiday be at the time we go home. And so there was a point in time where we were all playing dominoes. You know how we do, playing dominoes, listening. Of course, I wasn't playing the dominoes. At that point, I was still considered a child, so I wasn't at the big person table. Or maybe we're eating, whatever. So me and my oldest sister have an estranged relationship. And so at the time, we were all just eating, having fun, blah, blah, blah. And I don't even remember what happened. And then all of a sudden she was like, you just think you better than us. Da, da, da. And I'm like, I don't think I'm, that's not my feelings. Right. But at the time I didn't understand that she was just casting off her feelings on me. So I said something smart back. You feel me? I was like, she said, you just think you better than us. You done went off into the UC Merced. What kind of college is that, right? And I said something, but I ain't gonna say what I said because that it's not about that. But what I said, quieted the room. But at the time, I didn't understand that she was casting off her issues that she has off on me, and it had nothing to do with me. I started driving trucks to escape home. Yes, ma'am. We know how to escape. That's one thing we sure know how to do. We know how to escape. But she was casting it off on me. And in the way that I responded, I'm sure it only made our relationship more estranged. And I should have just been quiet. But that's what I meant to say. Like, so we will literally cast off our insecurities on other people and then hold them accountable for things they never thought things they never did and things they never even thought to pursue. So we have to be more accountable. Share this out with your friends. I'm going to share this, save this to my timeline. If you found any value, tag somebody in the comments when I do post it. And my Cash App is at the bottom if y'all want to donate to your sister. And that is all. So, like I said before, chapters 1 through 5, chapters 1 through 6 are currently up on my YouTube. So, if you need to catch up with us, click the link in my bio, scroll all the way down to the bottom, click the YouTube icon, and you'll be able to go to my read along playlist. And chapters 1 through 6 are up. I uploaded chapter 6 from yesterday on there. And tomorrow we will be reading chapter 8, My Best Friend Next to God. I'm excited about that because I don't even have no idea what that could be about. And so thank you all for tuning in. I challenge you to share this with a few people, and I challenge you to listen to the things that she said and implement them in the way that you communicate with people, especially when you're having a disagreement. So thank you all very much for tuning in. I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a very beautiful day. And Sister Victoria X signing out.